Do you like being scared? Do you love scary movies? Okay, fine. Do you enjoy playing support characters, but maybe you want to try a different kind of support? One who, instead of just healing and buffing their allies, protects them by scaring the bejeebies out of their enemies, terrifying them so profoundly that they run away screaming, or fall to the ground trembling, or just freeze in place, unable to move even a single muscle? Well, if any of those things are of interest to you, then you are going to love today's video. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4 each week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, or if you just really like theory crafting, or if you're looking for some good D&D themed ASMR, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and man, I am so glad you're here. So thank you for watching. My name is Colby. Right, so support in RPGs. It can be a lot of fun, especially if you get a kick out of helping your teammates, right? But I think, maybe especially for those of us who have spent a lot of time playing MMO video games like World of Warcraft, right? Sometimes we kind of pigeonhole support into a pretty narrow play style. You heal, you buff, and then you watch your companions do everything else. Now, sure, if you enjoy doing that in your, TTRPGs too, if that's something you want to do in D&D, then I think you absolutely can, and it can work better than ever with the 2024 rules. See my Ultimate Healer 2.0 build here for an example of one way to do it. But as longtime viewers of my channel know, that's not necessarily my favorite way to play support in D&D, and I have a feeling that a lot of you probably agree with the sentiment. And the great news is that there are so many ways to play a support character in D&D. You can heal, sure, but you can also be a tank, debuffing enemies and protecting your allies by getting the bad guys to focus on you, right? Or you can also be a control-focused character, protecting your allies by preventing the bad guys from being able to act effectively in the first place. I've done a lot of builds for all three support characters, but I'm not sure if I've ever done one who's going to be as good at all three of those things as the character we're going to build today. A durable, buffing, protecting, healing, and above all else, controlling powerhouse of a character who's even going to be capable of some pretty decent damage when they want to be as well. I am super excited to share it with you, so let's just go ahead and jump right in to D&D build number 213, the Fearmonger, the Scarecrow, the root of all fear, ensnare with despair, stage fright, the Dread Knight, the Showstopper, the Angel of Fear, Terror Firma. Oh man, the Discord community put out some bangers this time, so thanks for those and many more, everybody who made the suggestions. But I think the winner this time has got to be the suggestion from Big Kang 13, the Fright Knight. Anyways, huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build this week. He does this every week, but man, today's is especially creepy, so nice work, Randall. If you'd be interested in checking out the other stuff that he's done, or maybe trying to reach out to commission him to create some art for your own character, or even your entire party, I will put links in the video description as always on how to do so. But also, first, hey, guess what, you guys? Everything Dice wanted to sponsor the video today, and that gets me so very excited because it means that, one, a lot of you went and bought some dice from them last time they sponsored a video, which makes me happy, and I know it makes you happy because their dice are freaking amazing. And two, it means I get more dice to add to my collection. Ha ha ha. So many beautiful little luck gems. Yes, my preciouses. So yes, for those who don't know, Everything Dice makes the best dice ever. Each one is handmade by a team of exceptional resin artistes. They are all balanced for casual play. That's important. Even those with like 3D printouts inside of the dice, like dried flowers or gold leaf or even hand-painted artwork sometimes, those printouts are light and have the same density as the resin of the dice. And they have a ton of fantastic styles to match your own unique character. The Misty Mountain dice I got from them last time are still my favorite dice set that I've ever owned because I love the mountains. And Smog. I also like Smog. It's not Smaug. Don't come at me with the Smaug garbage. Anyways, today I wanted to show you a couple of Everything Dice's newest, latest, and greatest collections. First up, the Gelatinous Cube set. I mean, first of all, check out the beautiful packaging. They do this for all of their dice. That's gorgeous. But yeah, each of these Gelatinous Cube dice here has custom printed 3D skulls and bones and weapons inside. Check it out. Check that out. You can't see it all that well, but there's like some swords in there and a skull. It's so cool. They're all polished to a velvet, like semi-matte kind of jelly texture, and they're huge, 30 millimeters. And they sound so lovely when you clickety-clack them together. And then we have this beauty, the Stardust Geode Liquid Core die. 40 millimeters on this baby. Twice the size of a regular D20. And yeah, it's beautiful. It has this liquid core and it's all like glittery on the inside and it moves. You can't see it all that well on the camera. But yeah, there's a regular size D20. This baby is massive. And it's so pretty and mesmerizing. So, come on, you dice aficionados. I know that you are drooling right now. Wipe that drool off your lip and go check out Everything Dice. I'd appreciate it if you would use the link that I've put in the video description and the pinned comment so that they know where you heard about them. And above all, use the code D4DEEPDIVE at checkout to save a whopping 15% off your order. You will not regret it. So, huge thanks to Everything Dice. Seriously, you guys are making my dice collection so much more amazing than it used to be. I feel like a real collector now, and not just a filthy casual. So, big thanks. Let's get back to the build. All right, at level 1, Paladin is going to be our starting class, and they're gonna kind of be the core of this build, the base anyways. They're just so good at being tanky and supporty, and while there's plenty of multiclassing that we will be doing as usual, I think it's important to start with Paladin here because it's the only way that we'd be able to get heavy armor proficiency, which will be important for our survivability. As for our species, I'm gonna say let's go with the Aasimar here. I love Aasimars, especially on Paladins. It just feels so right to be a paladin who's also this like celestial being, right? And they're perfect for the concept we're going for today because they get a nice little healing hands. Sure, that's supporty, right? But more importantly for us, because of their celestial revelation feature, which says that starting at level 3, with a bonus action and once per day, alas, I wish it were more, but we can transform for 1 minute into one of 3 transformation options, right? Heavenly Wings lets us fly, Inner Radiance lets us shed light and deal radiant damage, but the one we are after is the Necrotic Shroud option, which says that our eyes become pools of darkness. We sprout flightless wings, and then each non-ally within 10 feet of us has to succeed on a charisma saving throw or be frightened until the end of our next turn. Ha ha ha, yes. Our first source of fear obtained, and it's super awesome and creepy if we want it to be. I guess I should say here, as a reminder, what Frightened actually does, right? Because we're going to be using it a lot. It causes you to have disadvantage on all ability checks and attack rolls while the source of your fear is within sight, and prevents you from moving closer to the source of your fear. Now, some things in game will both frighten and then do other stuff too, but the base condition is just that. And I mean, that's a lot. Super solid debuff, and will do wonders to help keep you and your allies safe. As for our background, I'm going to say, go with an old one or a custom one if you can, but if you can't, I'm going to offer 2 options here instead. Entertainer will work great because it gives us the ability score increases we want and a solid origin feat for support builds, but if you can play with it, the one that I would most want to have here would be an older one, right, that you can, then customize, the Knight of Solamnia background from the Dragonlance book. So as for the origin feat that we would get here, if we went Entertainer, entertainer, then we'd get the musician feat, and that's fantastic. It says that when we finish a short rest or a long rest, we can play a song to give heroic inspiration to allies who hear it. Heroic inspiration is really good, right? Letting you re-roll any die immediately after rolling it, whether that's an attack, a save, an ability check, or sure, even a damage die or something else, if you're crazy, I suppose. Always useful, everyone wants it, but the Knight of Solamnia background would give us the Squire of Solamnia feat, and this is nice both for what it gives us now, and more importantly, for this build anyways, what it can get us later. For now, the feat lets us mount or dismount with only 5 feet of movement. Sure, we'll get Fine Steed later, right? That's nice. But then says that once per turn and proficiency bonus times per day, when we make a weapon attack against a creature, we can cause the attack to have advantage, nice, and if it hits, we can add a d8 of damage to the attack. Nice little boost, which we'll appreciate once in a while, damage-wise. Again, we're mostly wanting this feat for something later on. As for our starting ability scores, I'm going to assume that we're going the point buy method as always and say let's get a 15 charisma, take a +2 there, 14 strength +1, and a 14 constitution. I would rather go 15 constitution +1 and a flat 15 strength if I could, but if you're taking the entertainer background, it doesn't have an option to bump constitution, right? So, do that if you can, I think, favor con. But we do want at least a 15 strength so that we can eventually wear plate armor without suffering a move speed penalty. That said, if you think you're usually going to be mounted, you could, I suppose, just leave your strength at 13, which we do need for multiclassing out of Paladin, right? And put those points into wisdom or something else if you'd rather. As for our starting equipment, we're going to want chainmail armor and a shield to give us a nice 18 AC here at level 1, sweet. But as for weapons, I'm going to say let's grab a trident. Yeah, a pally with a trident. I love it. Or sure, if you want to be slightly less interesting, go with a battle axe, or even a maul if you want to favor damage over your armor class, right, and use a two-handed weapon. But the reason for taking one of these three is because at Paladin 1 we get weapon mastery, and we very much want the topple mastery, which the trident and battle axe have, which say that when we hit an enemy with the weapon, we can force them to make a constitution saving throw or be knocked prone, and that's great for what we are trying to do, root and snare our enemies, because prone enemies have to use half their move speed to stand up, meaning they'll be less likely to get to our squishier allies standing in the back, right? And also, of course, attacks made against them from within 5 feet while they're prone have advantage, which is great for you and your other melee allies anyways. Oh, and yeah, I would go Trident here over Battle Axe, because while both have the versatile property, the Trident also has the thrown property, just in case you need to make a ranged attack, right? And also, fine, yeah, Tridents are just cool, and I don't think I've ever actually, built around the weapon before in a build. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. Anyways, as a Pally 1, we get Lay on Hands, which gives us a number of points equal to our Paladin level that we can spend as a bonus action to touch someone and heal them for 1 hit point per point spent, or to cure poison if we spend 5, a super efficient and nicely scaling heal option there. Great for support, right? And then we also get Pally spells. Now, right at level 1, and I'd say, go with the usual suspects. First of all, Bless is probably our go-to concentration option for now, letting 3 of our party add a d4 to all attacks and saves. It's so good. But then sure, Cure Wounds for some more healing, Divine Favor for a little extra damage to all of our attacks if we want it, and then most important of all for this build, Wrathful Smite. Such an awesome spell. It adds, with a bonus action, an extra d6 of damage to a melee attack you make. Admittedly, that's a lot less damage than other smite options, but then also gives the enemy that you hit with it the frightened condition until the spell ends, if they fail their wisdom save, and no, it doesn't require concentration, so they might be frightened for a whole minute here, which is awesome. Though they do get to repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. You know who I would always fail my saving throws against? My channel members and patrons. Because you guys are the best. I could not do this without you, and so I just wanted to give a quick shout out to you and say thanks. If you're not a member or a patron, I would love it if you would just consider becoming one. In the video description, you'll see a link to either the YouTube channel member thing or the Patreon page. If you support at any level of silver or above, which is just a couple bucks a month, you get access to all of the perks that I offer to my members and patrons. And I would just ask that you would pay what you think it's worth and what you feel like you could afford. But those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for all of my builds so that you can recreate them more easily yourself, right? right, without taking notes or rewatching the video, access to the D4 community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. My members are amazing, but even if you can't or don't want to support me in that way, that's totally fine. I appreciate you just being here and liking and subscribing and watching. So thanks for your support in whatever form you can give it. Now, at level 2, I think we need to take a quick Warlock dip. You certainly don't have to, but I am planning on getting Warlock levels with this build anyways, and so I think it just makes a lot of sense to take it early on for that amazing Eldritch Invocation, Pact of the Blade, which we can get right now at Warlock 1, letting us bond a weapon that we can thereafter use our Charisma modifier for our plus to hit and damage with it, right? And while, sure, if you have a 15 strength now, that's only a +1 difference with our 17 charisma, but before long it's going to become a +2 and then a +3, right? I just really love being able to focus on a single ability score for builds when I can, for both attacks and spells and everything else, and Pallies just get so much out of a good charisma. So the question is, why is your paladin pledging allegiance to an otherworldly being right now? I mean, there are so many potential good reasons. I'm sure you've got plenty, but I would be sure to come up with one, especially if it's something that your DM, requires for multiclassing. So plan ahead, work it into your backstory. Maybe it's just the natural progression path of this custom class that you're designing, the Death Knight or the Doom Knight or whatever, or the Fright Knight, sure, but if you need more than that, maybe this is something that's happened to you against your will. Maybe you were tricked into this pact, right? Or you had to swear it yourself in order to get the power that you needed to conquer a particularly evil, dastardly foe. Perhaps, though, in this character's case in particular, you had to pledge yourself to like an arch-lich in order to gain power over an undead menace you were set on vanquishing. Whatever your reason, in addition to an Eldritch Invocation, we get Warlock spells at Warlock 1, and there are a whole slew that I would love to have. Booming Blade is always nice when we can only be making one attack per turn anyways to discourage enemies from moving after we hit them, right? And like chasing after our squishier allies. Eldritch Blast, sure, for a nice ranged attack option. But then I would consider the Friends spell to potentially charm someone. You're going to see a lot of charming in this build, so you could think of them as maybe not so much just a fearmonger, but maybe like a Jekyll and Hyde or like good cop, bad cop type who can turn the charm on or the fear depending on the situation. A master manipulator of emotions, as it were. A Compelled Duel is a nice tanking spell to encourage enemies to attack you instead of your allies, right? Lightning Lure will be great to pull enemies closer to you, which we will really want later. Charm Person and Cause Fear are super on point thematically, and I will add Bane to the mix here as well. I think it might be the spell that I focus on using for concentration for most of the early and even kind of into the mid game on this build. It's the Anti-Bless, right? Requiring a charisma saving throw, but then subtracting a d4 from enemies' attacks and saves, and that's just a fantastic catch-all debuff that all of your allies will appreciate, but that we especially will enjoy later as we start targeting enemy saving throws more often. We'll get into that. At level 3, with Pact of the Blade and the Bane spell secured, I think we gotta get back to Paladin, meaning we would be a Pally 2, and that would give us a fighting style. I think I would be going with the Protection fighting style on this build, personally. It got such a fantastic buff for the 2024 rules, saying that now, when an ally within 5 feet of us gets attacked, we can use our reaction to stick our shield in between them and the attack, right? Causing that attack and every other attack made against them until the start of our next turn to have disadvantage. That's freaking amazing. You just have to stay within 5 feet of your ally for them to benefit. Super great, like protection-like, tank-like ability, right? And I love it. Stand next to your barbarian and now they can attack recklessly without penalty, yeah? Awesome. Alternatively, if you were more concerned about your own skin, you could take defense to bump your AC, or, if you wanted to do a little more damage, you could go dueling, sure, to increase your damage with your trident by 2. And then at Pally 2, we also get the Paladin's Smite ability, which just says that we always have Divine Smite prepared and can cast it once per day without spending a spell slot, so it's a nice bit of free damage once in a while if you don't have another use of your bonus action, adding, as always, an extra 2d8 of radiant damage at the first level here when you hit with a melee attack, or now an unarmed strike as well. At level 4, we would be a Pally 3, and that means we get Channel Divinity, right? 2 uses of Channel Divinity per day, recovering 1 use with a short rest that we can use either for something from our subclass, more on that in a sec, or for Divine Sense to detect fiends, undead, or celestials within 60 feet. As for our subclass, yes, in case you hadn't guessed yet, we are going with Conquest, a subclass I've only used 3 times in builds to date. All of them years ago, too. One of them, the support lock, kinda has a fair bit in common with the build today, but it's not nearly as good. I guess you could think of this as support lock 2.0, but it's also pretty different in a lot of ways. Anyways, as Conquest Pally, we get a couple of free oath spells here. Armor of Agathis, that's nice, and that's why I didn't recommend it as a warlock spell, to give us some temporary hit points and return damage to melee attackers. And Command, also nice, which is why I didn't recommend taking it at Pally 1, so that we can command one enemy to flee, or grovel prone, or halt, or approach, right? All very fear and charm appropriate, I think. And no, before you comment, you can no longer use the spell to have someone defenestrate. Nice try. That was cheesy anyways. Now, since Conquest Pallies are an older subclass, they still get 2 potential new Channel Divinity options. The first, Guided Strike, is the thing I usually would take Conquest Pallies for in the past, as it lets you add a plus 10, 10, to an attack roll, and you can even wait to decide to use it until after you see the roll. That'll just about guarantee a hit on anything except for like when you get a nat 1, right? Very nice. But for this build, the one I'm more interested in is Conquering Presence. This says we can use Channel Divinity and our action to target every single creature we want to within 30 feet of us to make a wisdom save or become, frightened of us for 1 minute. They do get to repeat the save at the end of their turn, but it doesn't require concentration. It doesn't end if they take damage or anything, and is pretty dang potent and perfect for what we are building today. At level 5, we would be a Paladin 4, and that means we get our first general feat. And we want a half feat here to get our charisma to 18, right? But the problem is there are just too many good options to choose from. Fey and Shadow Touched are both worth considering, but we already are going to be able to eventually get any spells we might want that are granted by both of those feats. Warcaster would, as always, be great, but as a Paladin with a great charisma, I'm a little less worried about making my concentration checks, thanks to the upcoming Aura of Protection. And actually, we're going to get advantage on our concentration checks eventually anyway, so I think the ones that I would probably prioritize would be first, Telekinetic, if we went the Musician and Entertainer route at level 1, as that would let us, with a bonus action, force an enemy to make a strength save or be moved 5 feet towards or away from us. And in a couple of levels especially, enemy position is going to be really important for us. The feat also teaches us the Mage Hand spell, which is handy. Anyways, as great as that feat is, if we went the Squire of Solamnia route at level 1, then instead I would for sure want the Knight of the Sword feat here, which has the Squire feat as a prerequisite, right? This not only increases our charisma by 1, but says that once per turn, proficiency bonus times per day, when we hit with a weapon attack, we can force a wisdom save or the target is frightened until the end of our next turn. Quite the bag of fearful tricks that we are accumulating here, and I love it. Oh, and even if they succeed against that fear on the attack, right, they are still going to have disadvantage on their next attack roll. So that's a pretty decent, like, protectory booby price. Perfect. At level 6, we would be a Pally 5. That means we get extra attack. Awesome. And then the new Faithful Steed ability, which just says that we always have the Find Steed spell prepared and can cast it once per day for free. And that's great. I'm not going to build around the steed like I did for the Sir Lancelot build a few weeks ago, which nobody watched, by the way. Okay, fine. A lot of you did. Thanks. But most of you didn't. It was a great mounted lance build, using Glory Paladin even. Go check it out. Anyways, lots of free movement with a free steed is awesome. Everybody's going to benefit from that. Here's hoping you fight in big open areas on the regular so that you can take advantage and you've got the space to move around. We also get a second level paladin spells here at this level, and Conquest Pallies get Hold Person for free, which has some nice I'm so scared of you I can't move flavor to paralyze just humanoids, right? But very strong, as well as Spiritual Weapon here, which isn't nearly as fantastic as it used to be now that it requires concentration. Hard to imagine ever using this spell right now, if I'm being honest, even for clerics. Not sure nerfing the spell was super necessary, but oh well. Anyways, aside from those, I would grab the usual suspects for paladins here. Aid to heal and increase max hit points by 5 for 3 party members, lesser restoration to cure some nasty conditions, and my favorite, warding bond, which is probably the best tank like protector spell in game, right? It raises an ally's AC by 1 and their saving throws, and then like splits the damage with them anytime they get hurt, right? They take half, you take half. You know what my favorite part of the spell is? It has a material component of 2 platinum rings that you and your BFF that you give it to have to wear for the duration of the spell for it to work. And it's pretty much the most adorable thing in all of D&D. It's so cute. Okay, at level 6, I usually do a damage report for my damage and tank focused builds, but this is really more of a support first build, and so let's maybe just do a support report. There are so many things that we are doing right now to protect our allies and debuff our enemies. Bane to reduce their hit chance and saves, the protection fighting style to impose disadvantage on attacks against our favorite melee friend, warding bond to put on our squishiest friend, and then there's the heals, lay on hands, cure wounds, our ASMR heal, right? But above all, there's the fear, our ASMR fear, wrathful smite, cause fear, conquering presence, and hopefully that Knight of the Sword's feat too. Our enemies are going to have one heck of a time getting near us or those standing close or behind us, right? And even if they do, they're very likely to miss their attacks as long as they can see our grim, terrifying visage. And even if they do manage to land an attack, it probably won't hurt as bad with us around, and we can always heal our allies back up afterwards anyways. We are super durable, can hit decently hard with extra attack, smite, and Solamnia features, and are pretty much the best support ever. And it's going to get so much better from here. Because at level 7, we would be a Pally 6, and yeah, that means the almighty Aura of Protection, which adds our Charisma modifier to every saving throw for us, and for all of our allies within 10 feet of us, so long as we aren't incapacitated, which is new, right? And significant, but this ability is still amazing. One of the best support features in the game, at least for those of your allies who can stand your horrifying presence. But level 8 is where things kind of finally come together for the build, because we would be a Pally 7, right? And as a Conquest Paladin, that means we get Aura of Conquest, which is really what makes all this fear that we've been trying to amass a lot more potent. Aura of Conquest says that, again, while we are not incapacitated, any creature within 10 feet who's frightened of us has its speed reduced to 0 and takes psychic damage equal to half our Pally level when they start their turn. So now we've got even more incentive to pile on that fear as much as possible and get as many enemies close to us as possible, hence the telekinetic and lightning lure suggestions, right, from earlier. Also, one note, you could now attack an enemy with your trident or your battle axe and knock them prone, apply your Knight of the Sword frightened ability on that same attack, right, or anything else you can do to frighten enemies, of course, and then, since they would be in your Aura of Conquest, be pinned to the ground, shaking in terror, unable to stand up, because doing so would require half their move speed, and their move speed is 0. And that's just kind of freaking awesome. Attack one enemy, knock them prone and frighten them with the use of your Knight of the Sword feat, then attack a second one, right? We've got extra attack, knock them prone, and then use your bonus action to frighten them with Wrathful Smite. Now they're both pinned to the ground. Or instead, use your bonus action for your ASMR transformation, frightening nearby foes, then attack 2 different ones, toppling each of them, and again, they're both pinned to the ground. At least until the end of your next turn, but by then you could do something else to frighten them. Use your Channel Divinity, for example. Lots of amazing, frightening options at our disposal, and it's only going to get better. At level 9, you might think that we would want to stick to Paladin to get the new Abjure foes, but actually that ability isn't quite as good as the Channel Divinity option we already have for the most part. The new feature does have a bigger range, 60 feet instead of our 30, but the new feature also caps how many we can use it on, right? It's Charisma modifier, number of enemies, and the fear that they take from it breaks if they take damage. It does further hamper them in that they can only move, take an action, or a bonus action, so that's pretty nice, but I think I would rather do some more multi-classing instead here to pick up additional fearful things to play with. The best and lowest hanging fruit at this point is, I think, in Warlock, so let's go back there to be a Warlock 2 now. This would give us the new Magical Cunning feature, which lets us recover half our spent Warlock spell slots. Remember, we would have 2 now, so getting 1 back with just a 1-minute right is kind of nice, since we get all of them back on a short rest anyways, right? But then we also get 2 more Eldritch Invocations, and I think I'd probably grab, Eldritch Mind for advantage on concentration checks, assuming we didn't get Warcaster, of course, and then probably Repelling Blast, I think. This would let us pick a Warlock cantrip, and sure, Eldritch Blast is great here since it fires 2 beams now, but you could always pick Booming Blade instead if you wanted, and then push an enemy 10 feet away when you hit them with the attack roll from that cantrip, right? Just one more way to try and position enemies appropriately for your aura and or your ASMR transformation. Okay, as for a level 9 support report, since last check, we've really upped our control game with that Aura of Conquest, potentially freezing multiple enemies in place, ideally with 1 or more of them pinned to the ground for easy pickings by our melee allies. We've also added fantastic support via Aura of Protection and even some nice defense and enemy movement capabilities for ourselves while we're at it. We are a true terror on the battlefield right now, and our companions love us for it, even if they're also a little uneasy about being our allies. At level 10, we would be a Warlock 3, and that means we get our Warlock subclass, and we just have to go with the Undead Patron here, for sure. It's so good, and I don't use it nearly enough in my builds. It's especially perfect for this build because it gives us the Form of Dread feature, which says that as a bonus action, proficiency bonus times per day, we can undergo yet another transformation, and while transformed, we gain temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus our Warlock level. We are immune to the Frightened condition, and best of all, once on our turn, when we hit with an attack, we can force our target to make a Wisdom save, or they are, yes, frightened until the end of our next turn. So, between this, Wrathful Smite, and potentially the Knight of Swords feature, we are doing a lot of frightening enemies with just our attacks, and I love that so much. I think if I were playing this character in game, I might flavor this transformation as like turning me into the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. We've got our fine steed, right? Make them look like a hellish, fiendish apparition with fiery hooves and a flaming mane, and then replace my own head with a jack-o'-lantern. Is it Halloween yet? Should have saved this build until October. Okay, now, the day that I am recording this, like seriously an hour ago, killing me, Wizards. Wizards of the Coast released an Unearthed Arcana with an update to the Undead Warlock. I actually went live with Kelly and Monty, and did a reaction. You can check it out right up there if you want. And yeah, I'm guessing some of you might be wondering if using that Unearthed Arcana version of the Undead Warlock would change the build here, and the answer is not really. The only differences for us are that the Form of Dread will be usable Charisma modifier times per day instead of proficiency bonus times per day, not a big deal. And that the Form of Dread can end if you're incapacitated. Oh, and that the previously expanded spell list spells are now just given to us for free, as with all 2024 Warlock subclasses now, right? Though the spell list is slightly different because, yeah, we get, second level spells here now as a Warlock 3. And as an Undead Warlock, we would either get access to or just get, depending on, what version you're playing here, Bane or Ray of Sickness, right? Ray of Sickness replaces Bane in the Unearthed Arcana. Otherwise, yeah, False Life, Blindness, Deafness, Phantasmal Force, all pretty solid options. As for other second level spells to consider here, I would just want to make sure that we focus on illusion and enchantment options for reasons that we'll get into in a few minutes. So that would mean like Crown of Madness, if you're willing to give up concentration to control just a single enemy. It can be great if you really want to take direct control of them because they're like a super big hitter, right? But that would require your action. Invisibility is always useful and is an illusion spell. Of course, you want Misty Step, and Suggestion is a fantastic control option that's also in the enchantment school, so lots of good ones to pick from. Alright, so at level 11, with the most important Undead Warlock features secured, I think it's time to turn to yet a third class here, and it would be Bard. What's kind of ironic about this is that I actually started out this build with the intent to build a Bard and build around the Bardic subclass that we're going to be taking. Some of you can probably guess what that's going to be, but the more I got into it, the more I realized that the thing I was trying to do with this Bard was actually done a little bit better by the Undead Warlock. I'll explain as I go. For now, as a Bard 1, just know that we get Bardic Inspiration, first of all, right? And this is just yet another really wonderful non-healing support feature, right? Letting you use a bonus action, Charisma modifier times per day, for now, to inspire your allies, giving them a Bardic Inspiration die, D6 for now, to use when they fail a D20 test to try and succeed instead. Infinitely useful and helpful. As for Bard spells that we get here, there are plenty of wonderful ones to choose from. Vicious Mockery is a fun way to do a little damage, debuff, and insult an enemy. Dissonant Whispers is perfect for this build since you kind of freak out your enemy and cause them to take damage and flee in terror, right? Healing Word is a great heal option, thus far missing from our arsenal for a bonus action and a ranged heal, right? Sleep and or Tasha's Hideous Laughter can be great control options when you want to do something other than terrify your enemies. And yeah, of course, Silvery Barbs if the mob will let you get away with it for a nice reaction that could cause an enemy to fail at something they thought they succeeded at, plus give an ally advantage. At level 12, we would be a Bard 2, and that means we get expertise, right? We get to pick 2 skills that we are proficient in and double our proficiency bonus for them, and I'm just going to say pick your favorites here. For this build, conceptually, it seems like performance and intimidation might be the most on point, but feel free to take perception instead or whatever else you want. Then we get Jack of all trades, which lets us add half of our proficiency bonus to any ability check we make that uses a skill proficiency we lack. And yes, this means that it no longer applies to initiative rolls. Sorry for those of you who keep commenting to say that it does. At level 13, we would be a Bard 3, and that means we get our Bard College, our subclass, and in case you hadn't guessed, we are going with the most fabulous of all subclasses, Glamour. Now, some of you may think that Glamour doesn't really fit with the character concept we're going for with this build, but let's actually read the new description that we get from Wizards of the Coast on the subclass, because I think it just might change your mind. Weave beguiling Fey magic. The College of Glamour traces its origins to the beguiling magic of the Feywild. Bards who study this magic weave threads of beauty and terror into their songs and stories, and the mightiest among them can cloak themselves in otherworldly majesty. Their performances stir up wistful longing for forgotten innocence, evoke unconscious memories of long-held fears, and tug at the emotions of even the most hard-hearted listeners. So sure, you could just make yourself into a beautiful, majestic glamour bard here, but I think there's plenty of room to instead flavor it as something terrible and frightening, no? Alright. As a Glamour Bard, we get 2 features here. Mantle of Inspiration lets us use a bonus action to spend a use of our Bardic Inspiration and then target a number of creatures equal to our Charisma modifier and give those creatures a number of temporary hit points equal to 2 times the roll of our Inspiration die. So a nice little buff for your party members. It also lets each recipient use their reaction to move up to their speed without provoking an opportunity attack. So it's a pretty potent Bardic Inspiration use, both to buff our allies and help everyone get into a more advantageous position. Really potent stuff. But the main reason that we are here, and the thing I most wanted to build around for this build, of course, is the Beguiling Magic feature, which says that first, we always have the Charm Person and Mirror Image spells prepared, nice, and then says that once per day, immediately after casting an enchantment or illusion spell, using a spell slot, hence my emphasis on those spell schools as we've been going, we can force a creature to make a wisdom save, no bonus action or reaction or anything required. And if they fail, they are either charmed or frightened of us for 1 minute, repeating the save at the end of each of their turns. We can restore use of this by spending a Bardic Inspiration if we want to. So yes, this is awesome, and we're going to be casting plenty of enchantment and illusion spells. So getting to freely fear an additional enemy when we do is just perfect. Maybe we cast Bane and then frighten an enemy, or Dissonant Whispers or Suggestion to take one enemy out of the fight and then frighten and freeze a second while we're at it, right? If they're within 10 feet of us anyways. It's just one more awesome tool in our Fearmonger tool belt, and I love the versatility that it brings us. We get second level Bard spells here too, and there are plenty of great ones to choose from, but nothing that really stands out to me as one that we're missing from our current support and Fright Knight arsenal, so go ahead and PYF. This then brings us to our next support report. Since last check, we have really just like turned up our support and control and fear potential to 11. We got one more way to frighten enemies with our attacks from Undead Warlock. We've picked up Bardic Inspiration and a slew of ways to use it to either buff and bolster our allies or frighten our enemies, and then just added a bunch of nice utility, healing, debuffing, and defensive options as well. We are definitely living our best Fright Knight lives right now. By level 14, we would be a Bard 4, and that means we get another feat, and I think I would probably just bump my Charisma to 20 here. It just improves everything that we do. Our attacks, the DC of our spells and abilities, our aura of protection. It gives us more uses of Bardic Inspiration. Sure, we could take another Charisma half feat, maybe Telekinetic if you didn't grab it before. I guess we could get Warcaster if we wanted to free up a Warlock Invocation, so we don't need Eldritch Mind, right? But yeah, I think capping Charisma is the most important thing we can do. At level 15, we would be a Bard 5, and that means we get Font of Inspiration so that our Bardic Inspirations, which become a D8 now, remember, get reset on a short rest instead of a long one, and that's kind of huge since we have so many fantastic uses of our Inspiration. And then we get 3rd level Bard spells, and while sure, Catnap, Dispel Magic, Tiny Hut, and more are all great, the big standouts here are Slow and especially Hypnotic Pattern, and above all, Fear for wonderful control, with the last two being great charm fear spells that also happen to be illusion spells, right? Meaning they could trigger our beguiling magic to let us get just one more enemy controlled who wasn't quite in the area of effect of the spell, right? And yes, sure, there's a super solid argument for beelining to Bard 5 to get these spells sooner, or perhaps instead staying with Warlock until Warlock 5 to get them before taking Bard levels. I think my concept of this build was to sort of frighten and control while making weapon attacks first, relying on spells for even more control second. But you could absolutely do that like the other way around, yeah. I just think that in that case, we probably delay Paladin levels until after hitting Bard or Warlock 5 first. That's less of a Fright Knight and more of a Fright Wight, an Arcane Fearmonger? I don't know. Regardless, I'm happy to finally be here now. At level 16, we would be a Bard 6, and that means as a Glamour Bard, we get Mantle of Majesty, and this is potentially a good feature, but it does have a fairly hefty price tag. So Mantle of Majesty says that we always have the command spell prepared, and then as a bonus action, we can cast it without spending a spell slot once per day, or more often if we spend a 3rd level spell slot for it. Because when we do this, we gain an unearthly appearance for a minute. There's so many appearance transformations that this character goes through. Do you have a different one for all of them? Maybe I should have called this the cosplay expert or something. This transformation lasts for a minute, or until our concentration ends. So we've got to use our concentration here. Now, for the duration of the ability, we can cast command with a bonus action every single round. And also, any creature charmed by us, and we do have a fair number of ways to charm, automatically fails their save against the command that we issue. So yes, this is potentially pretty nice in that we could, for example, command an enemy to grovel every round, having them fall prone or flee, etc., and continue then using our action to make multiple fear-inducing, prone-causing attacks. And it's a nice potential additional way to control with our bonus action. But the fact that it costs our concentration is a little rough. Would you rather cast Fear or Hypnotic Pattern on multiple enemies, or be able to use Command every turn as a bonus action, right? Would you rather just cast a 1st level Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which knocks an enemy prone and incapacitates them for a minute, and would also trigger Beguiling Magic, right? Or use your bonus action every single round to potentially knock the same enemy prone, just doing it over and over. I'm not saying Mantle of Majesty is bad, I just don't think that it's super amazing. If we could do it without concentration, that would be amazing. Maybe too good, arguably. And sure, especially making enemies flee with the command spell to potentially provoke opportunity attacks from you or from your ally, that is pretty great. And yes, this would work. For the record, you can make an opportunity attack against an enemy so long as they are using their own movement to move away from you, and they would be when under the influence of a command spell, just so long as you're not like pushing them, right? Anyways, that I think is probably the best use of this feature here, but yeah, it will be really nice sometimes. And then there will be plenty of times when you're just going to want to use your concentration for something more powerful. And hey, having options is nice, so this is nice sometimes. At level 17, we would be a Bard 7. That means we get Counter Charm, making us truly the master of fear and charm, because Counter Charm says that if we or an ally fail a save against being charmed or frightened, we can use our reaction to cause the saving throw to be re-rolled, this time with advantage. So much better than the old version, right? And then, yes, we get 4th level Bard spells here. And sure, you'll want to consider old standbys like Dimension Door and Polymorph, but there are a lot of great illusion and enchantment options here. Charm Monster is right up our alley. Confusion and Compulsion are potentially nice control spells. Greater Invisibility is a really potent buff, and one of my favorites, Ralathim's Psychic Lance, to do respectable burst damage and incapacitate an enemy for a round, plus trigger Beguiling Magic to frighten or charm someone else, right? And so, for our final support report, since last check, our list of ways to frighten and charm and control have just continued to grow in leaps and bounds, with a much improved spell list and a capped charisma and Mantle of Majesty, as well as increased ability to protect our allies from those negative effects with counter charm and a more powerful bardic inspiration that we can use a lot more frequently. We are just true powerhouses of terror on the battlefield. Scariest support ever. So, let's bring it on home with some final thoughts. The main question that I'm sure a lot of you might be asking is this. Is this build worthless against enemies who are immune to charmed and especially frightened? There are quite a few of them in the new monster manual. 82 are immune to frightened out of just over 500 though, so call it about 15%. I mean, that's significant, but it's not like the majority of enemies you'll be fighting are going to be immune to fear or anything, depending on your campaign, I guess. Now, to be fair, at higher challenge rating, a larger percentage of monsters have this immunity. A third of CR 13 monsters are immune to fear. Almost half of CR 17 ones are, and 100% of CR 20 monsters are immune to fear in the new monster manual. So sure, the core of what you're trying to do with the build might become less effective at like tier 3 and especially tier 4 of play. But fortunately, most of us don't play the game that much at those levels, and even if you do, of course, as always, you're going to want to talk with your DM about your character, what you're hoping to accomplish, and do they see this being a frustrating experience in the campaign that you're about to jump into, right? Maybe they can give you a homebrew magic item, like later on in your character's career, that prevents creatures from being immune to your frightening effects if they're within 30 feet of you or something like that. I don't know. But here's the good news. Even if the enemies that you're fighting are immune to fear and or charm, guess what? You're still a freaking paladin bard with a little warlock dip. You can still slow enemies or bane them, bless, heal, inspire, and protect your allies better than just about anyone, and still bring a healthy heaping of damage with you to boot, and be really hard to kill. You are by no means worthless when facing enemies who are immune to fear here. In fact, I kind of hope that you get to run into some of them once in a while, not only to keep you on your toes, but because it might be kind of fun to get a chance to do something other than your usual shtick when in combat, right? But when you do get to pull off your shtick, man, will it be awesome. Or, well, terrifying, I guess. And awesome. So, that's the build for the week, and I hope you enjoyed it. I had a blast putting it together, and in fact, this build is now in the running for the one-shot that I'm going to do with the Dungeon Dudes and with Will from D&D Shorts and some others at Gen Con this year. That's coming up late July, early August in Indianapolis. For those of you who can make it, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're playing in the Drakkenheim setting, and considering how kind of dark that setting already sort of is, this feels like it might be the perfect character to bring to that table. Though I am considering as well playing an arcane hand monk, which the Dungeon Dudes themselves created and is really fun and is my favorite class. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll play a Bladesinger. Who knows? But regardless of all of that, I hope you know that I love you. Thank you guys so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. It means so much to me. It really does. I hope you have a fantastic day and a really great week. And if you don't, I hope you'll hang in there. Please don't give up. I know stuff can suck sometimes, but you got this. I hope that you will do good and be kind, and that I see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Too late, my time has come. Send shivers down my spine. Body's aching all the time. Goodbye, everybody. I've got to go. Gotta leave you all behind and face the truth. Mama, ooh, I don't wanna die. Sometimes wish I'd never been born at all. So, my second child, my oldest daughter, her choir, her show choir, sang that song yesterday for their final choir concert of the year, and it was awesome. Best choir version of Bohemian Rhapsody I think I'd ever seen or imagined seeing. They did a really good job, and they even when it really hits right during the bridge, the whole choir started headbanging. It was hilarious. Actually, it was perfect. Just got done recording going live with the Dungeon Dudes with Kelly and Monty, talking about the new Unearthed Arcana that coincidentally is also kind of horror themed, right? We talked for 2 hours and it was awesome, but I'm just a little nervous that my voice is not gonna hold out for another 2-hour recording session here. We'll see. I tried to think of a good spooky shirt that I could wear for the recording, but I don't really have any. I don't have a lot of scary. I'm not a big fan of horror IPs, really, that I can think of. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways. All right. With the 2020 per turn and proficiency bonus times per day when we make a access to have someone defense. I can't say this word now. Since checks, and yeah, of course, silvery bobs. And that means as in the campaign